Hello and welcome. This is Nabil Ejazi, and you are watching ImaginXP's podcast series. ImaginXP is a learning organization for future skills. At ImaginXP, we are spreading the word of UX and trying to build a design community. Through our various programs, young individuals and professionals were able to make their way in UX design and design thinking. So, for today's podcast, we have with us Bhavishya Garg. Bhavishya is the head of user experience at Amex Clear. In his extensive 6.5 years of career of in design, he has been helping more than 45 startups based in India, USA, and Australia. And he has a core capacity and core competency in areas like user research, design strategy, project management, wireframing, prototyping, data analytics, and whatnot. So let's quickly welcome Bhavishya. Hi, Bhavishya. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, man, and really appreciate your gesture and uh, you being a part of this cause.
Definitely glad.
Great. So I think we shall start with our questions and we can start with our conversation.
Definitely.
So to start with, this is something that I would like to know, and I'm sure a lot of people out there would be really interested to know, like your transition. So from engineering to design. So how does your entire design journey looks like?
Right. So basically, it had been a journey of a lot of ups and downs based on a lot of exploring that I did in my college. So I started pretty early, and that was one of the major reasons that I got to where I am, because I got to the work pretty early. Right. I started working when I was in first year of my college. So as soon as I got into this engineering college, most people dream of IITs and NITs. And as soon as I got into this private college of engineering, I thought that life's to the end. All that I'm going to get is the 3.5 lakh TCS package. But, a lot of seniors actually came to me and guided me through on how that could also not be true. If you work hard enough for 4 years, you could actually land somewhere that is way, way different than what most people land onto. And that's why I started interning from the very first year of my college. First, I interned for ISEC. Then I was first joined by Microsoft as a U Crew representative, then as a Microsoft student partner, hired by also Google for Google Student Ambassador program, where we used to teach students all across India about cloud computing, web development, and design. So, and that is exactly where I actually, till then, I was working with a lot of startups as an IT manager, as a coder, as a WordPress coder. I was basically taking any job that there be it, who gave me the job basically. Any job that would give me anything to do, I would do it. I was nearly in first year of my college at that time. And that is when I transitioned from code to design, when I met a lot of folks in Google, in my Google Summit. And I figured that my core skill set is not coding, not algorithms or data structures, but my core skill is problem solving and empathy for humans, empathy for creating good products for user. And that is when I got to know only when I actually went out and talked to a lot of people and figured out that there is a role like UX designer that exists. In our normal engineering colleges, these roles don't even exist in our textbooks,
Yes,
right? So it was hard to even recognize that people would pay for this. People would pay for someone to just design the app and not code it. That was not a realization that came quite to the end of the second year for me. And that is when I started working with a lot of startups. Initially, I did the work for free. A lot of startups, I would pitch directly that I would redesign your whole brand for free. Just let me do it. And just out of that offer, I got at least 5 to 6. I was working at a time for 6 startups, 7 startups at a time, delivering all the products to them in a timeline where I'm going to the college regularly for at least 9 to 10 hours. And that is basically how I built my portfolio. Once I built a solid portfolio of all the work that I've done, I started going out and asking for money. And my first project, believe it or not, was 300 rupees that I got paid for redesigning a whole website in 2014. So not even that back, right? I mean, that
and
far
this
back.
was then you probably would be in your second or third year of
Exactly. I was in second year transitioning from as a coder to designer. I offered them to redesign. And in the end, I got a Paytm voucher, literally. To recharge my phone. And that is how I started. And that is one of the learning there, I think, out there for all the young viewers out there, that you need to rise above your ego. You need to rise above all the feasty packages that you see people getting in user experience. You need to really get into the dirt and be willing to work for it. So that really was my journey. As soon as my portfolio started growing, a lot of big startups started giving me the roles, and I started creating my own design process that I later launched in form of a book, which became Amazon Choice: Pirates of Product. And I just basically was using that rinse and repeat process for all the startup that I working with. And it became so well that at the end of my 4th year, I was training a couple of UX teams into how to do UX and ship products.
Great, great. Definitely, yeah, it is really important to get your hands dirty in the field before you aim for any high packages or, like some
Exactly.
really decorated career in design. And this goes on for each and every field we pick and choose from. Great. So, Bhavishya, now talking about your current profile. So now you're working as the head of user experience at Amex Player.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about your role there, and how does a general day at work looks like?
Right. So MX has quite an exciting design team. It's quite diverse and
Hmm.
it's specialized in a lot of ways. So when I say I'm doing UX, most of the
Yeah.
time I'm doing only UX. So for MX specifically, I am involved in other stuff. For example, I'm the chief editor of their MX publication blog, where we are encouraging all the people in MX team to come out and share their stories of success with the world and whatever they have learned throughout the process. So I am doing a couple of other stuff, but majorly what involves as soon as I go to the office is we live between the product team and the UI team. And what comes to us is through a research done by product managers, data analysts, anyone who is looking at user reviews or user data, or is looking at any relevant data that could come up with some form of improvements that he could suggest us, or new apps or completely new ideas that we could come up with on our app or on our different properties. And that is collected within to a sheet, and that sheet is basically given to the design team and product team to prioritize on which would we want to launch first and which do we want to launch later. And that is divided into sprints, different sprints each week. So at the really end, what the UX design team narrows it down to is a set of tasks that we'll be performing, be it improvement or a completely new feature, for which we might have some research at hand, or we might do other research by ourselves. And it's just really a set of tasks that we would do for the whole week, that will involve us creating all the UX deliverables. For example, we might recreate our personas for certain things. We might draw out the user journeys. We detail out the storyboarding for each use cases that a user might have. And at the end of it, we create low fidelity wireframes on Sketch that then we deliver to the product team for a review, and then it goes next to the UI team. So that is a little bubble that UX team lives in. It's currently a small team, but uh, we are expanding very soon.
Great, great. So yeah, definitely, like great work that you guys have been doing, and taking it to an whole next level.
Right.
So now let's talk about you designing some winning products. So the product that you have created for Google, Microsoft,
Right.
Petitfeed, Jabong. So can you please elaborate on these?
Right. So one of the major products that I would love to talk about is CoinDCX. Right. CoinDCX
Yes,
literally
finally, CX.
came. So I was one of the ex-partners and founding members of CoinDCX, and CoinDCX came to me as just literally a one-line idea in a Starbucks by Sumit Gupta, the founder,
Mhm.
that dude, we need to create the most powerful and yet the easiest cryptocurrency exchange out there. And that really was his pitch. And just out of that, through all our research, through understanding of the market, through understanding of the best heuristics of creating a world-class product, we launched CoinDCX in April, one day after bank denounced RBI banks to interact with cryptocurrency
Oh,
exchanges. Literally one day before our launch on 7th April, launch was on 8th April, 7th April, government decided to announce that RBI none of the RBI banks will interact with any of the crypto exchanges. And we had a complete INR gateway, everything built in. And just in one day, we had to redo a lot of those things and launch on 8th April. And in less than 1 year, it became India's largest cryptocurrency exchange, which in turn obviously led to creating such a large market share that the biggest, before CoinDCX, the biggest startups were ZepPay
Right.
and CoinX, and both of them went out of the business of crypto, and CoinDCX stayed. And right now, it's the largest crypto marketplace in India. And that happened entirely through a very delicate understanding of what users really want. We were constantly in touch with our users. I was personally replying to all the messages that came to on our Telegram, or people personally tagged me for even the small issues that they had in CoinD6. And through that, we built a complete experience map of every user, everything that a user is experiencing throughout the whole life cycle of CoinD6, and be able to optimize it at the right level. And of course, we had 1/10 or even lesser amount of resources than most of these large startups. We were a very small team, and hence were very agile. We're constantly trying to test out and basically build product as soon as possible. So time was always a constant.
Great. Wow. Great work there, Bhavishya. So I'm pretty sure that the viewers of this podcast would now like to know about the niche mind, how it took birth, what is it all about, and how design comes into the picture with the niche mind.
So the niche man, I think, really born out of the need that there is no free or low cost resource available for designers out there, right? That
Yeah.
is one of the major things that when I was growing up, when I was trying to become a designer out there,
Mm.
every website I went on to, it was a 15,000 rupee course, another was a 60,000 rupee course, someone would be selling me an 80,000 rupee course, right? A lot of these were out of the reach of someone who is, let's say, whose whole household income is, let's say, 5,000, right? So I thought there is a section of society that might be missing out on the knowledge. And a lot of even Khan Academy has been releasing a lot of free tutorials, right? I mean, that has been to tap an audience that is not previously tappable, right? And I think podcasts like these are also a try to give out content in best way possible in low cost to everyone out there.
Yes,
And Niche
definitely.
Mind born out of that idea. I created a UX notebook that uh, that was costed. I mean, most notebooks out there were around 5,000. If an Indian customer saw it, 5,000, 6,000. We made UX notebook 700 rupees ish, and sold it out to all the users. And we made another version of a wireframe notebook at 299. So we almost kept our profits to almost none, only kept the distribution profits, and gave out a tool to people that I thought would help them better their UX design process. So I designed the process, as I previously said, Paris of product, and I laid it out in terms of set of templates that you can use for your own UX project. So that was basically the need that Niche Mind bought out of. And constantly what we are trying to do on Niche Mind is to give out low cost or no cost to none products out there to all the users. So we might be coming out with some free cards that people could use while brainstorming. So
Okay.
just giving out tools to people and make it accessible to a wider audience was the aim of Niche Mind, especially in the designer and product manager niche.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. So now, since you are a person who is on ground, who's in the field, and so this is like more of an obvious question that I'd like to ask here.
Right.
So, what do you think is the future of OTT platform, and most importantly, how UX is playing a pivotal role here?
Right. So one of the major things that happening in OTT right now is adoption, right? For last past 3 years, due to the growth of Geo,
Mhm.
lot more people have access to internet now. A lot more people are streaming on YouTube, and that has led to a lot of revolutionary changes on every platform out there, be it YouTube, Vimeo, or Netflix and Prime. The number of subscriptions have gone higher. People binge watching have gone higher, right? And the real need right now is not to just push out content, just to push out unlimited amount of content, is to find a balance between finding the right content for the right audience, right? Let's say your audience is tier 2, tier 3, understanding them to the core, understanding their problems, their way of looking at life, and creating content that is pertinent to them, right? I would say, let's say Netflix, for example, is an extremely amazing product, right? But uh, I would debate that it's majorly meant for tier 1 audience, people, let's say, who understand English, people who are woke in percents, right? But a lot of people, majority of India, for example, it does not lie into that bracket. So what's the future of OTT looks like is it's going to democratize it. It's going to make it accessible to a much wider audience. And the challenge for UX would be is how do you scale the experiences of a pro user versus a tier 1 cool audience versus a tier 3, tier 4 non cool audience, as people say, right? How do you differentiate into one product the experiences that you can build for all of them at once? That is the biggest challenge.
Yes, definitely. I can totally agree to what you've said here, and especially with the role of UX and how the entire media, the entire platform has been enhancing. So, Bhavishya, on that, what do you think? What is the designer's role in our today's society, and how can they really make this world a better place to live?
So, designer at its core is a person who is incessantly looking for problems to solve. Uh, a designer is someone who looks at a real world problem and thinks of a solution that he could do it better. And that is the biggest challenge for all the designers, and opportunity for all the designers out there, or all the people who are creative, in the sense, people who like to build things and come up with new things. All of these people are designer in a sense, right? You look at any problem in the society. Let's say you're looking at let's take a simple example of currently there's COVID-19 pandemic. Let's say you come up with an app that push out mental health awareness among people who are currently in quarantine, and giving them right tools and resources to battle COVID-19 quarantine. And just by doing that, you will not just gather a huge subscriber base, but you will also think of ways to monetize it later, right? So it is a viable startup idea, but it arises from a very deep problem that in this case is the mental health uh, issues that people are facing currently in quarantine. So that is really a job of a designer. If you can convert an idea, and that's what designers do, they convert an idea into a wireframe, into a prototype that you could pitch to an investor, right? They convert an idea into a product. And that is exactly what you need. You need to constantly evaluate around you the biggest problems that you feel empathetic about. A lot of problems that there exist that I may not personally feel empathetic about, but I do personally feel empathetic about people getting the design education and getting the right design education, right? So you pick a problem that you may empathize with a problem that you probably have faced earlier, and you want to solve for others, and then find an idea on how to build a product or a service out of it.
Great. Yes. So yeah, definitely. Like how a designer has been converting an idea into into a product that really solves the problem, and how it changes things, might make a world a better place to live, and it is still doing it. And
Exactly.
so uh, now, Bhavishya, I'd like to ask, like, so usually when we talk about user research, so it is generally going out in the natural user environment, asking and collating a lot of questions.
Right.
But now you have been talking about conducting the entire user research process remotely.
Right.
So what's the idea behind it, and how can someone really go about it?
All right. So the way to look at remote user testing here is to look at it in a way that it amends, or it adds on to your current user research regime, right? It will
Right.
not entirely replace it. You can't entirely replace going out and talking to users into their own context, right? But at the same time, a lot of startups these days are remotely located in different parts of the world.
Yes.
We often, let's say, are located in India, but are creating product that impacts Americans, Russians, right? People from Canada. How do you test out your real audience without understanding the remote user testing? Is nowadays is impossible. right? So what most people are using these days, especially because of COVID-19, a lot of people are within their homes, confined within their homes, and finding new ways to do user research. And doing remote user research allows you just that, right? Remote user research could be moderated or unmoderated. Uh, Basically, moderated is simply you are with the customers at the time they are testing the app or the prototype, and unmoderated is simply task based, where you give out your task to a bunch of users and they come back with the result of their recording or their task being done on a screenshot. So that's basically how user testing works in short. But why you really need it is to avoid the mistakes in chief that could cost you way higher at the later stage. The mistakes that you can catch at the early stage with user testing that could have been a wrong hypothesis or something that your users don't like, it might cost you very high when it's actually live and out. And for you need to remove it and revert back from it, it costs you much higher. And in the whole cycle, you might have wasted time of testers, developers, and a lot of other stakeholders. But only if you do the proper user testing and test your early prototypes with your users, it makes it easier for you to get a map of what is working, what is sticking with them, and what is not. And it allows you to make feedback, allows you to make changes in your design at an early stage.
Great. Yes. So now, if we talk about both the processes here, so what are some major differences between both of these user research processes?
Right. So the major difference is probably not being able to understand entirety of their emotions, their expressions, their legs, their hands. Maybe let's say when you are just looking at someone into the camera, you might probably notice their expressions, but still there is a human to human connection have to be had if you are in front of them, right? You might notice a lot more things that are non-verbal in nature, right? Things that they might not be saying, things that they might be feeling, their environment. You get a better idea of your users when you actually go and do user testing with actual users. And that is the only major difference between what you and basically it makes your overall result more quantitative than qualitative. Qualitative is basically based on emotions, based on overall quality of your research in terms of how have you analyzed their needs and goals, their non-verbal aspects, right? And that lacks out a little when it comes to remote testing. But when it comes to testing your tasks with user, for in terms of testing your overall information architecture with the user, when you're designing your menu, for instance, let's say you're launching an ad campaign, a sales funnel for people, it's very practical for you to test it out first. It is very practical for you to be in the mindset of a scientist when you're launching any feature, that you first test it out incessantly with people and make sure that once it launches, they like it. And there's quite a probability that they won't still like it. You'll have to continuously analyze their reviews, their behaviors, but you can take a fairly strong guess and save a lot of money by doing the right usability testing. And that has been the major difference. So when you are doing remote user testing, you are doing that with tools like Optimal Workshop for free. Let's say you're doing it on Google Hangouts or Zoom. You're interviewing participants on Zoom, and you might or might not need another collaborator with you. They can join from any part of the world, become a contributor in your call, and just take down notes, right? Take down what you're saying, take down, notice the real expressions of people, right? Maybe
Right.
have a second outlook on things. And that's how you can really perform user testing online and remotely, which you don't need to go out and into the field and talk to the real users.
Okay. Okay. So, Bhavishya, if you can talk more about the tools that someone can use to conduct the entire research process, remote or online, that too in a budget, that too like it has to be not to be high, but it has to be a cheap user research.
Right.
So, if you can throw more light on all these tools, part and how can they really manage that?
Right. So majorly there are three parts of planning your remote user research. First is defining the what, second is defining the who, and third is the how. So what
Yeah.
what is basically, you first need to define the business objectives or test objectives that you're trying to test. Is it the new feature that people ask for that you have latest designed? Are you improving a certain aspect that I've seen that you are trying to convert more people? That could be your test objective, that we need to convert more people through our landing page. You need to define your test objectives first, and using that, using those objectives, you can start to make out list of the type of test you require, right? The second thing, we have covered the what. The second thing is who. Who is very important, because that might also need a couple of tools for you to be engaged with. So that is user recruiting, right? The second is who you are doing this user testing for. Who are you going to test with? Which are your primary personas, right? You need to first analyze if you're able to recruit similar personas within your own circle, within your own user database. But if you're not able to recruit certain people or such type of people with, within from your data, you need to use tools like, again, Optimal Workshop or usertesting.com, which will allow you, or lookback.io, which allow you to recruit people from all parts of the world. They'll define the type of salary they have, the type of demographic that they have. You can define it. And based on that, they'll give you certain test participants for ranging from $50 to $90 each. And that might be expensive. That's why it's better for you to first look into your own user data, take favors from family, friends, people who might fit your primary persona, and just asking them for favors, right? Let's say someone requested a certain feature that you are now bringing. You can text that person that, hey, thank you for giving us the feedback for this new feature. We have actually launched this feature in beta. We'd love for you to test it. A lot of people would be willing to test it for free, right? But it's often a good hygiene to give them some kind of incentive at the end. In US, the least they offer is $50 for each study. In India, it could drop down as much as 1,500 rupees for each study. And that's still, if you're evaluating, let's say 10 people, it's 15,000 right there. So you need to be very wise into how you're recruiting. In defining your business goal, the first step, the what, you don't need any of the tools. You just need Google Sheets to note down your plan. And maybe you could use tools like Miro or Miro or Mural, M-U-R-A-L,
Yes.
to collaborate with your team and come up with those test objectives. In second, you will be recruiting people. You just need user testing or recruit your own people from your own data. Third is, how are you going to test it, right? So there are, as I mentioned, there are two ways of testing it: moderated and unmoderated. Generally, moderated testing on all these platforms are expensive. They again start at the range of $60 per month minimum. And what moderated testing does is that you can give that platform, let's say Optimal Workshop or lookback.io, you can give your prototypes or your app or your website, you can feed it to them, define certain tasks. For example, let's say I'm testing for MX Player. I could give them two types of tasks: open-ended or close-ended. Open-ended task could be, how do you go about finding a movie on a platform like this? It's an open-ended, right?
Yes.
Or how do you generally approach selecting a movie or a TV show when you want to watch one? That's an open-ended question. Close-ended could be, where do you find your profile in this? How do you add to watch list? I'm testing specific past part of the UI here, right? So you can define these two type of tasks within that platform, and then you can launch it out in a way of emailers to all the participants that you might have recruited, or you might have recruited from any other platform. As soon as they click on the link, they'll be able to join it. And most of the time in moderated, you will have to be there at the other end. So you need to manage a time where they could join at the same time. And as soon as you both join at the same time, the testing starts. Let's say they have joined from the mobile app. Let's say you're testing a mobile. You can still see their face. You can still record their voice and analyze it later. Let's say on platforms like lookback.io. There is an ability to save all the conversations that you have with people on that platform. So that is the first thing that you do. You need to define all the tasks. That is called moderated testing. And there are a bunch of unmoderated tests. Surveys is one of the unmoderated tests, right? It is an unmoderated way for you to figure out what your audience want. You could take a detailed survey of what of the genres that they like, which of the different options of all these movies, which of them ticked with them the most. what they want in their own ideal Netflix or ideal MX, right? Asking such questions on a survey also count for unmoderated research. So there are many other types of unmoderated research which are often famous. There's the card sorting, which you can recruit people to actually do card sorting for all the elements of your website. You can make them uh, task based. For example, you can give your menu to them and give a task of, let's say, again, finding a profile or changing your phone number and see where people go live online, right? You don't have to actually be there on the other side, but people will be recording it live and uploading it to your own server. And that's how really that's how unmoderated testing works. And as you would realize that in unmoderated testing, you often get more of a quantitative data. You get more of the averages. You find out most of the common problems. But the real findings come from moderated testing when you are actually talking to people and digging in deeper into what they think and why they think that.
So they should really focus on going for moderated testing.
In a way, but often it's very hard and time taking, and often you have to offer them $50 each at the end of it, which you may not have for, let's say, 50 people or 10 people, right? So you need to find ways to
Yeah.
create a distributed plan for your
Right.
user research where you get more type of data, right? So you would still need to do unmoderated testing for some averages, for basic understanding of your audience, and for low cost, right? Often these softwares allow you to test as least as $10 or $19 for each unmoderated test with 20 people, which would cost you way more, less than cost of one participant in the unmoderated
Right.
one, right? So you need to mix it up, mix and match based on your need, based on your budget, and most of the time try to figure out nifty ways to get people to do it for free, especially people who are reviewing your product, especially people who have asked for a feature online. Reach out to them and tell them that we have made that feature just for you, and we'd be honored to have you test it. And you'd be shocked how many people will do it for free.
Right. Okay. So yeah, at the end of the day, it has to be a perfect mix of both the methods
Exactly.
and methodologies. Yes. So now we'd like to know what are the do and don'ts of conducting remote user research.
Right. One of the major don't, let's start with don't. One of the major don't is do not rely on it entirely, right? As we previously mentioned, do not entirely rely on that. You need to constantly validate the hypothesis that you make in the user testing, create it with a prototype and test it once more, right?
Okay.
Testing once is not enough. Let's say first time you're testing with a prototype on InVision or Marvel app. Let's say you have a prototype ready, you're testing with a sort of people. When you come up with a better design solution, you might need to test again. Don't just end up testing once. You have your insights and then you are doing everything after that based on your own assumptions, right? You
Right.
need to constantly be actually user centered, and doing sporadic testing, doing 1 quarter at a time testing might not help you. You need to build agile models within your team where you are testing more often. So that is the major do of and in combined don't of a user research. Another thing that comes to my mind is do not think that it's expensive. I mean, I've seen most of the designers, they shy away from doing user testing because their bosses won't allow them.
Right.
Their bosses won't give a budget for them, right? So what I would advise to those people is you need to come up with your own testing strategy where you can do it for as less as 3,000 rupees. I personally have run research studies where I have launched Facebook ad and I've spent less than 3,000 in recruiting all the participants, and all of the participants gave their favor to me for free. Because at the end, I gave them some kind of incentive. Let's say I am hiring, I want to recruit UX designers. Let's say I'm doing research for ImaginXP. I want to understand what kind of course do they want. I'm running a user research for ImaginXP, for example. I would easily create an ebook that only and only UX designers would like, spend 15 days on it, and then launch an ad to give it out for free in the return of their 15 minutes, right? So people often like free stuff, and you can use such things to also hire participants. So don't entirely rely on all the costs that you see and get scared of on usertesting.com, because they'll start with $5,000 and your boss will not allow it. We all know it, right? So you will need to be ready with your own nifty measures on how are you going to do it. Even if you have to put your own 3,000, 5,000 into it, do it for the sake of learning. That's the best 5,000 you'll ever spend.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bhavishya, for having such valuable insight on this part. Uh, Now I'd like to move on to our next question. So, so this is for all the design enthusiasts. So, so how can they really design such amazing experiences in such brief period of time? How can they really do it? Because you did that. So
Right.
what would be the few learnings that you'd like to share with them?
You need to run after the skills, the core skills needed to create products. And I would name out those core skills. The main core skill is understanding the process of product innovation, understanding the process of how products are created at large scale, small scale, middle scale, understanding all sorts of product development. You need to understand how businesses work, how businesses make money, what kind of startups are out there. You need to first understand the market. And the very second thing that you need to do to become a good designer is you need deep understanding within the human cognition, right? What makes you different from a UI designer is you need to understand the cognitive abilities of the brain. You need to be able to guess or the call the bluff on how people think. Right? We people, irrespective of how intelligent and awesome we are on the earth as a species, we still think on certain norms, right? We still see a certain way. We analyze the data around us in a certain way. And you could use the knowledge of it to create products that make people think less and make them feel delightful at the right time and guide them in a way to what you really want them to do. And that's what Facebook does. That's why Facebook hires so many designers. That's why Twitter designers are they exist. They do so many research because they are trying to guess the real point of or your joy. What's the deep seated need that you have that you need to solve in the world, right? They came up with, let's say for example, they came up with a look back on memories. Facebook came up with that. It might have been it might have arise from a very deep seated need of looking back into our past and being proud of it, right? So that's how they use user research to understand the very basic aspect of the world. So that is one thing that is very important according to me.
Great, great. Thank you so much. So now we are approaching towards the end of our podcast. So uh, moving to our next question. This is one of my favorite questions that I'd like to ask the experts. So, what do you think? What are the uh, career prospects in UX design? How does the future looks like?
So I'll talk about two types of realities. First reality, I'll talk about the good one, right?
Okay.
The good one is one of the best packages and one of the best salary packages on in the tech world out there. Are now going to product managers and user experience designers, psychology graduates, people who have the creative background, have been getting the leadership role more and more in today's startups and corporates, right? They have been offered salaries next to none. Like they have the best salaries out there. And the other reality that we face towards is what the 90%, 95% of the people might be living is the world where uh, it's a world of UX designers where they are probably overworking. They are not valued for their work. They are working in an organization who might not inherently understand UX, might not give them the right resources to do UX, right? So this is we are the world. We are living in a world where these two stark realities live next to each other. And what I advise you for your career is the more you build your skills, the more you know the core concepts of this field, the more you know about psychology, as I mentioned, all the core aspects that I mentioned, the more you know about it, the better are your chances into being included into the first part of the reality than to the next one. So skills are the only things that are that differentiate someone from being in the first phase versus the second phase.
Right. Great. Great. So now, what is the message like? Taking this ahead. What is this one message that you'd like to give to our viewers and also to ImaginXP?
Right. So, I mean, Imagine XP is doing an awesome job educating people with right amount of right design resources, right design teaching, and that is extremely important in this way. And for my message to people would be is that would be the message I started with. Let go your ego and start learning. The space is getting competitive. Space is getting better. Designers are getting better by the day. And you need to really skill up. You need to constantly work towards solving the right problems and coming up with the right solutions of the problems that other people didn't think of. You need to have a different perspective and a zeal to actually learn about how human behaves and how you can create products for them. So once you create that real zeal within you, everything would solve. And I would thank Imagine XP a lot for nourishing a lot of such curiosities and helping people get the right information and understand the right problems.
Yes, definitely. Thanks so much, sir. It's a pleasure. All right, so we have come to an end. So thank you so much, Bhavishya. It
Thank
was
you.
a phenomenal interaction, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of viewers had a lot of learning from this one. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Nadi.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
So
Glad to be there.
it's a pleasure. So for all our viewers, thanks for listening to us, and all the very best for the road ahead. And if you'd like to watch more such educative content and such stuff, you can follow us on our social media pages. You can check out our YouTube channel, and you can visit us on www.imaginexp.com. So this is Nabil Ijazi from ImaginXP signing off, and I'm going to see you real soon in another exciting episode. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much, Bhavishya.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Stay safe.